Hello there, Ben Bowers, the Spirit Specialist, and welcome to the announcement of the winners of the Spirit Specialist Spirits of the Year 2021. You might be surprised throughout this video that I'll end up doing some quick costume changes. I'm filming this over the course of a few days because after announcing the winner for each category, I'll be having a little taste of each one, trying to give you a bit of an idea of what I'm loving about it and why it's a winner. And in terms of those winners, I am completely independent as a retailer. I have no links with any brands or any larger companies. So these are my Spirits of the Year. These are the ones that have excited me, interested me, massively exceeded my expectations, products that I've had loads of fun with, that you might look at them and go, well, surely the other one's better. It might not necessarily be better, because in these spirits and these categories, I'm not just looking at the liquid itself, I'm looking at the experience that I've had with them personally. The fun that I've had with them, the cocktails that I've made, the interactions that I've had with customers in tastings and sampling sessions where we've tried things and been really surprised and had some fantastic discussions about them. So to me, that kind of encompasses it being the Spirit of the Year for not just how it tastes, and they all taste amazing, but also the surrounding experiences and feelings and thoughts and interactions that I've had as a result of having that. And I think that gets lost quite a lot in competitions, but also people's reviews as well. Yes, the liquid is key, and the liquid has to be a high quality, but sometimes it's also what surrounds it and your what happens to you and your friends and where you're drinking it and who you're drinking it with also elevates what it is that you're drinking. So this is purely personal. None of the brands, none of the brand owners have been made aware that they've even been nominated, and none of them have been told up front that they're winning. So there's been no money changing hands. I've not been given any free stock. This is purely my personal choices for the Spirits of the Year. Your mileage, as with anything, may vary, but you know what? That's absolutely fine. Hopefully these nominations and the winners will encourage you to try them, try something new that you might not have come across before, and you may really enjoy them. You may not, but that's fine, because we're all different, and that's one of the wonderful things about humanity. So I actually filmed the rum category announcements yesterday, and I'm doing a different introduction today because I properly rambled. And you're probably thinking, well, you're rambling now, Ben. Yeah, well, I rambled even more. So you'll find me in a different jumper as I give you the winner of the rum category. We started with the Rum of the Year and then move on to Flavoured and Spiced. So the nominations for the Rum of the Year are Chairman's Reserve St. Lucian Rum, Equiano Dark Rum, HMS Victory Navy Strength Rum, and Plantation Original Dark Rum. And I can announce that the winner is HMS Victory Navy Strength Rum. So, HMS Victory Navy Strength, I'm going to give you a little indication of what it tastes like while I talk about this, because this is one that, as part of my preamble, massively exceeded my expectations. So it's produced by the Isle of Wight Distillery, who also do Mermaid Gin and Mermaid Vodka. And Mermaid Gin, I'm not a big fan of. Looks pretty, but to be honest, the gin is quite sweet, quite sickly, kind of like, not artificial, but just a bit mainstream and there's nothing particularly exciting about it. Now, the sea salt vodka, I think, is absolutely amazing, and it is a nomination for the Vodka of the Year. But this surprised me even more than the vodka did, because I was given a sample bottle of it. Well, I was given the dregs of a sample bottle that looked like that. It's not the most exciting looking thing in the world, particularly compared to the Mermaid bottles. So it was like, okay, and it's a Navy Strength, but it's bottled for the National Museum of the Royal Navy. All right, I'll give it a go. Tried it, absolutely blew me away. My expectations were low, I tried it, and it was just stunning stuff. On the nose, there's dark brown sugar, really dark brown sugar. There's coffee, there's dark chocolate, and even though it's 57%, there's not a lot of heat on the nose, but what there is really accentuates those dark flavors and kind of like lifts it a little bit. It gives it a really kind of rich, almost petrol-y character, but in a really nice way with all those other flavors going on. And then that absolutely continues through. Again, really, really dark brown sugar, like deep dark muscovado sugar, black coffee, not quite espresso, but nearly there, like big, it's like black Americano coffee. Dark chocolate, touch of chili flakes in there, touch of black pepper. The alcohol content, again, kind of like gives you a bit of heat, but a couple of drops of water in will mellow that out. Superb in cocktails. That in a dark and stormy TM, Gosling, whatever, in an equivalent of that dark and stormy cocktail with ginger beer, stunning, cuts through very spicy ginger beer, you know, like Old Jamaican or the Fever Tree ginger beer, but then also has enough depth and complexity to work with lighter ginger beers as well. In a rum sour, oh baby, now we're talking, because you've got that complexity and that deep dark richness to counteract the citrusy vibe from the lemon juice, or the super sour if you want to make the world's easiest rum sour. It's absolutely superb. The price point I think is really good for a Navy strength rum as well. The bottle is the only thing that lets it down, to be honest, but actually I kind of like the fact that they've not gone too fancy on it, because it's not drawing attention to it. It's actually more about what's inside the bottle itself. In terms of the other nominations, this was a pretty close category. Character? Where's that come from? This was a pretty close category. I can't even say it again. Never mind, I'll give that up as a bad job. Because I love the plantation rums. I love the plantation brand as a whole, to be honest. And Chairman's Reserve's rum is kind of an all-timer for me. It's got so much character to it and everything like that. And you know, the Equiano Dark was a new rum that I got in relatively recently that I love, that kind of like Afro-Caribbean feel to it. I think the bottle is absolutely gorgeous, and it was one of those where the package, actually the liquid inside was as good as the packaging was, but for that element of surprise, for that massively exceeding expectations, that is why the HMS Victory Navy Strength Rum is my Rum of the Year. It is $47.99 and it is available through the shop, www.spiritspecialist.com, if you weren't already aware. Okay, so we had another rum category, which was the spiced or flavoured Rum of the Year. And the nominations were
Burning Barn Smoked Rum, Libations Piña, Spirited Union Organic Coconut, and Twin Fin Golden Spiced Rum.
And the winner is... I need to move my camera so that we can kind of do multiple angles like it's MasterChef or something and really, really draw it out. Although me just rabbiting will draw it out. But the winner is Spirited Union Organic Coconut Rum. Now, I actually feel a bit justified having this as the winner, having put it on a rum tasting relatively recently, and wondering what other people's expectations would be. Because Spirited Union, relatively new distillery based in Amsterdam, doing botanical rums. So kind of the same principle as gin. They're bringing a rum in, they are adding botanicals and redistilling it. And I was sent from the Spirited Union rep a selection of their range, just miniatures, 10cl miniatures, and went through, and I was more interested in the spice and sea salt, which sounded really nice, the pineapple, because I like pineapple rum, and there was an organic coconut, and I was like, oh, coconut rum, really? I'll leave it till last. Left it till last, knocked my socks off. A standout of the entire range. And the range is good, don't get me wrong. Spirited Union are a fantastic rum company, doing some really, really interesting things. But the organic coconut just absolutely stood out. And again, like the HMS Victory, low expectations, blew them out the water. So on here, what we have, and what I like about this is it tells you very clearly on the front of the label what it is. Organic Belizean rum united with toasted coconut flakes, coconut water, vanilla and cacao. And it's that cacao element that makes the difference. Because what we have here is a fresh, light rum that has those coconut flakes that have been toasted. So you get that slightly kind of toasty coconut feel. That's pretty bloody obvious, Ben. The coconut water is used to dilute down to 28%, 38%. I should know that. But it's that element of cacao nibs, because on the nose, you get coconut, but you get fresh coconut. And as soon as I say coconut rum to people, and I've given this to plenty of people to try in the shop as well, And the reason I put it on the rum tasting was coconut rum, Malibu, sweet, sickly, don't want to know, no thank you very much. But you nose this initially, and this is room temperature. It's even more so when it's chilled. And I do recommend drinking it chilled, but it does still work at room temperature, which is absolutely to its benefit. But the coconut element is fresh. It's clearly fresh coconut flakes, rather than that kind of sweet, slightly artificial coconut that you can get on other coconut rums. It's fresh, it's light, but there's this subtle hint of dark chocolate right at the back, but like high cocoa dark chocolate. And then when you try it, oh, it's so good. The coconut, again, it's fresh, it's mouthfilling. There's a lovely, slightly oily texture to it. And the cacao element, again, this dark chocolate, I liken it to a dark chocolate Bounty bar because I love dark chocolate Bounty bars, but you don't have the kind of sweetness of the inside of the coconut, like the desiccated coconut that they've got in the middle of Bounty. It's like a dark chocolate Bounty that's kind of a super premium version, you know, made by Green and Blacks or something like that. You know, you kind of get your Bounty bar, but you just improve the ingredients. You make it fresher, you make it lighter, you use earthier dark chocolate, you use much better ingredients all around, and you get this. It's mouth-watering, it's delicate, it's soft, it's so easy to drink. And again, this is one that absolutely surprised me, blew me away, and I love spirits that do that. I love spirits where you're thinking it's going to be one thing and it's like, oh wow, where's this come from? This is brilliantly made. Care and attention has been put in this, and they have absolutely nailed it. It's amazing in a daiquiri. Coconut and lime, absolutely stunning. And when I put it on the rum tasting, it was the standout, and it was easily the most surprising for everybody, to the point where there were a couple of people that kind of said, I wasn't expecting to like this at all. As when I saw coconut rum on it, I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll give it a go anyway. And it's absolutely blown me away. So I was not the only one that was genuinely surprised by this. It's really good value for money as well. I think we're looking at, is it $28.99? I should know, it's my shop, but I can't remember. So value for money wise, I think it's fantastic. I've been out of stock for a while, I've just got some in, and it's stunning. It's so good, I can barely get words out of my mouth. It just is a brilliant rum that will appeal to many people, unless you don't like coconut, obviously. But this is, do you like Malibu? Try this. Next level. You won't go back to Malibu. Malibu is like a dog's dinner compared to this. It's everything Malibu wishes it could be. But there are lots of people that like Malibu. This in the equivalent of a Bailey. If you do this with Magnum cream liqueur, which is a cream liqueur with single malt whiskey and cream, Dutch cream actually, so it all ties around quite nicely. Bailey's and Malibu. This is a, you know, I don't know what you call it because it's not Bailey's and Malibu, but this is like light years above a Bailey. Absolutely amazing stuff. Again, this was a really close one to call because Burning Barn smoked rum was very close. That is an absolutely stunning rum. And if it wasn't for the surprise element of this, which has taken it into first place, Burning Barn Smoked probably would have been the winner, because that is an absolute belter of a flavoured rum. And with Burning Barn Smoked, if you like Kraken, try Burning Barn Smoked, you will never go back to Kraken. Absolutely amazing stuff. Libations Pina, I am a sucker for a pineapple rum, and I do really like what they've done with that in terms of that combination of pineapple and spiced. The Plantation Stiggins was also a very close rum thing to go into a nomination. It was basically a toss a coin between the Pina and the Stiggins Pineapple to get a pineapple rum in there. And then we've got the Twin Fin Spice, not the Twin Fin Spice, yes, we've got the Twin Fin Spiced as well, which I really like, but I've had it on a tasting and I've given it to quite a few people and it's sort of split the room a bit. It's not gone down as well as I thought it might. So your mileage may very well vary on that, but a deserved winner is the Spirited Union Organic Coconut. Okay, so that's the rums done, and let's move on to Gin of the Year, which I split into two mini categories, Gin of the Year and Flavoured Gin of the Year. So, Gin of the Year first. The nominations for this category were
Inverroche Classic. Linlithgow Distillery Lin Gin. Rare Bird Dry London Gin. Isle of Rasay Hebridean Gin.
And the winner is... Tension builds. We need some dramatic music. I'm not going to put some dramatic music over the top. But the winner of Gin of the Year 2021 is Rare Bird Dry London. This was probably always going to be a winner, to be perfectly honest, because this is... I've been involved with this gin, and I say involved in terms of I have had it for the first time about 18 months ago. During the pandemic, I did a gin tasting for friends in the local community, and I was looking at local gins. Just literally Googled gin distillery in the local area on Google Maps. Rare Bird came up in Malton, which is about a 40-minute drive from where I live. Got in touch with Matt, sent him an email and said, look, I'm looking at doing a tasting, and he very kindly donated a bottle. And it absolutely blew us away. It was the standout gin of the whole tasting that we did. It was superb. And by that point, I already kind of knew I was wanting to open my own place, and getting made redundant was the boot up the backside in order to get to where I am today. But from day one, it was a case of I'm having Rare Bird in the shop. They are local, which is a thing. People want local gins wherever they are, almost irrespective of if they're any good or not. For some people, just want local gins. But they're local and they're also fantastic, and Matt is incredibly passionate as well. So this gin is, I think, one of the best sipping gins. It has immense versatility. I did a cocktail tasting recently where we made a perfect martini. This was the gin base, and I tried a number of gins with the vermouths that I had to make that perfect martini, and this had the slight softness just to allow those other flavors to come through, as well as that kind of intensity that you need. You want that gin forward feel on a martini. On the nose, it's fresh, it's clean, it's slightly fragrant, so he uses Tuscan lemons and hibiscus and green peppercorns amongst the other botanicals. Matt and his partner used to summer in Tuscany, and what they were wanting to do is essentially make a Mediterranean style gin in Yorkshire. And there is a lovely kind of sun feel, a feel of being on holiday in the summer. You're sat in the sun, but it's not necessarily on a beach. It's more like in the countryside. It's really evocative of being in the countryside when it's absolutely blazing sun. And like having a picnic with cheese and nibbles and antipasti and things like that. It's so fresh and clean, but there's a lovely, soft, slightly fragrant feel to it. And then on the palate, it's round, it's warm, there's a lovely citrusiness to it. The juniper then kicks in, but it's not overpowering. Sometimes juniper can be a bit too full on and go a little bit almost sour. And I think it's the hibiscus that just gives you that slight soft, slightly sweet, ever so slightly sweet, slightly floral edge as well. And like I say, as a neat sipping gin, this is phenomenal. It's so good, and it has such a lovely weight to it, but there's a really nice kind of gentle citrus zing. It's like a lemon zest, as well as that soft, slight sweet hibiscus feel, slightly floral, slightly fragrant, and there's loads of things going on. It works amazingly well with vermouth because you have that fragrant, slightly bitter element from vermouth. So in just a standard martini, absolutely amazing. Gin sour, top notch because you get that citrusy element. It's incredibly versatile, but it's just so well made consistently. Oh, it's absolutely brilliant. It's totally deserved my gin of the year. To be fair to the others, the Inverroche, the Lin Gin, and the other one that I've forgotten, the Rasay, they are cracking gins. But this was probably the easiest one of the easier ones for me to pick a winner out, because this really is a clear winner compared to those ones, and those are really good gins. I'm really pleased with my gin selection. I think I've got a nice balance of kind of like London dry style gins, botanical gins, flavoured gins that aren't fake and sickly and sweet and everything like that. And Red Bird, where's Red Bird come from? Rare Bird absolutely is at the top of the pile. His rhubarb and ginger is very good if you like proper rhubarb and ginger, almost quite sour. And he's just launched a vanilla spiced gin, which I forgot to pick a bottle up to show you, so I'll put a picture up now. And if I was doing a category of Christmas spirits of the year, even though it's only been out a couple of months, it would be up there. It is absolutely amazing. So if you like kind of Christmassy type gins, Oh baby, go for that one. So that's the gin of the year, but we also had the flavoured gin of the year, and the nominations for those were
Sheffield Distillery Rhubarb and Custard Gin, Shining Cliff Bakewell Pud Gin, Tarquin's British Blackberry, Three Wrens Apple Crumble Edition.
And the winner is, and this was actually quite a tough one because I really do like all four of them. This was very, very close. But the winner is Three Wrens Apple Crumble Edition. And a bit like Rare Bird, this has been one that I've had in the shop for quite a while. I can't get the top off. And I've just loved it. And I love Three Wrens as a brand, consistently excellent gins. And this is one where it's the story behind it as well in terms of encountering it also adds into the reason that this is my flavoured gin of the year. Not just because of the fact it's also fantastic. So Vicky, my wife, was going through Facebook, and obviously you talk about drinks, adverts pop up on them. You think about something, an advert will pop up on Facebook, be it radiators or car alarms or scissors. I thought about it. I mean, I am now going to get 3 different adverts on my Facebook feed when I open it next. But an advert pops up on Vicky's feed, because naturally we're talking about gins and brands and everything like that, for Three Wrens. And she said, oh, they look nice, and Apple Crumble sounds nice. And I was like, okay, you know. She said, well, can you get in touch, see if they send some samples and we can give it a try, and if they're any good, we'll get them in the shop. I was like, well, okay, yeah, I'll get in touch with them, see if we can try it. Not really thinking Apple Crumble, because there are a lot of like apple pie gin liqueurs and various pie flavours. And they're all sickly sweet, and they're all kind of a bit gunky and artificial and not very nice at all. So Nick, guy that owns Three Wrens, comes back to me, really, really friendly, sends me some samples. I try all of them. I try the Apple Crumble first, absolutely fall in love. I am still amazed at how he manages to produce not an apple gin, not an apple pie gin, but Apple Crumble. And the secret is toasted oats. So we have Cheshire apples, we have some spices like cinnamon, and then it's a maceration of toasted oats that turns it from an apple gin, what would be a very nice, fresh, slightly spiced apple gin, almost an apple pie, to Apple Crumble. And you can tell it's crumble, it's not apple pie. And it's just so clever how he's done it. So on the nose, you get the apple, but you get that soft, oaty character, like slightly warmed up hobnobs. And if you're watching from outside the UK, you're wondering, what the hell is a hobnob? It's like an oaty biscuit. But it's that brilliant combination of oats and apples that works so, so well. It's lovely and it feels warm. It feels slightly autumnal. You know, for this time of year, it's end of October, beginning of November that I'm filming this, and it sort of feels like that right time to be sniffing that sort of feel. Nice warm spice, nice kind of toasty oats, and then on the palate, the apple comes through a little bit more. You get almost a creaminess on there, a bit like it's kind of apple crumble with a touch of custard on. Not too much custard, to be fair, but it's like there is a little touch of custard in there. There's a slight sweetness to it. On the nose, the toasted oat element, the crumble element, is slightly more forward than the apple. On the palate, the apple then comes through. I would say with the Apple Crumble edition is the warmer it gets, the more sweetness you get from it. So it is much better chilled, but it's amazing in a cocktail. Like a sort of like a daiquiri, like an apple crumble daiquiri, but if you use a little bit of caramel syrup, there's a toasted apple sour, which is absolutely stunning. So it's basically apple crumble gin, a touch of like caramel syrup, Monin caramel syrup, or any type of caramel syrup that you can find, lemon juice, egg white to kind of froth it up, give it that creaminess, but you get that kind of like caramel, apple, cinnamon with a bit of sharpness as well. Oh, it's such a good cocktail indeed. And this is such a phenomenal gin. It really is. This was a difficult category for me to pick one because I love the others as well. The rhubarb and custard is so full on, so in your face, but it does exactly what it says on the tin. The Shining Cliff Bakewell Pud is a bit like this in terms of you think Bakewell tart and it's not. This is more of a deconstruction. This is a deconstruction of Apple Crumble. The Shining Cliff is a deconstruction of Bakewell Pud. And then what's the other one? I've completely forgotten what it is. The Tarquin's Blackberry, which is just brilliantly balanced between being like sharp but not too sharp, sweet but not too sweet. But it's not just the quality of the liquid, it's also my expectations being exceeded, the conversations that I've had, the cocktails that I've made with this. I think it's a wonderful gin. I think Nick has done absolutely brilliantly with not just this, but also the rest of the range that he's done. And that is why it is a very deserved flavoured gin of the year. Okay, so let's look at the Vodka of the Year 2021. And the nominations were
Black Cow Vodka, Crystal Head Vodka, Jaffa Cake Vodka, and Mermaid Sea Salt Vodka.
So this was a tricky one for me to pick a winner, but I did pick one, and the winner is Isle of Wight Distillery Mermaid Sea Salt Vodka. And this was really hard, simply because I like really clean vodka. It's a much maligned category. I really can't understand why people go all out for gin and really ignore the vodka category when it's basically the same thing. At its most simplest, juniper is the difference, and even then legally, in terms of what the regulations state gin should be, it's very, very woolly. The EU regulations for the definition of gin, outside of London Dry, which is a process rather than a flavour, is a predominant flavour of juniper. That is it. No proportions, no volume, nothing like that. Not a certain amount of juniper must be used, or one juniper berry is used, you can call it gin. It is literally a predominant flavour of juniper. So a load of gins out there, you know, the flavour gin, the apple crumble gin that has just won flavoured gin of the year, legally isn't gin because it doesn't have a predominant flavour of juniper. But there we go, that's the way the industry is at the moment. However, with vodka, I find with kind of unflavoured vodka, it's more about texture and feel and mouthfeel and subtlety, and then you get your flavoured vodkas. And what I found is, and if you watch the video where I looked at Jaffa Cake vodka, rum and gin, is that vodka allows flavour to actually shine through even more, because with gin you've got that juniper element that sometimes kind of gets in the way of the flavour profile that they're trying to achieve. Now it works in some cases, as it does with the flavoured gins that I announced as my nominations and winner, but on other occasions, actually the gin gets in the way, as it did with the Jaffa Cake. And I love Jaffa Cakes, so Jaffa Cake vodka was well up there. And I love the Black Cow because I love that creamy mouthfeel that it's got because of being made from whey. The reason I've picked Mermaid Sea Salt as my vodka of the year is it was so close. It needed something, one of them needed something a little extra just to lift it above everybody else. And with the Mermaid Sea Salt vodka, the thing that lifts it above everybody else is the espresso martini. Because the sea salt element in this is an absolute game changer for espresso martinis. On the nose, the saltiness isn't really there because salt doesn't really have much of an aroma. And when you're dealing with a fairly high alcohol content, what you would smell as salt is kind of lost in the alcohol. But on the palate, straight away, the tip of the tongue, just around the lips, and then as you swallow, you get that salt tang, and it's a sea salt tanginess that cuts through, elevates the flavour profile that's there. Without the saltiness, to be honest, this would be a pretty ordinary vodka. But that salt just lifts everything. It zings, it zaps. And in an espresso martini, the salt and the coffee and that kind of dark chocolatey feel that you get, absolutely amazing. And this blew my socks off when I tried it. Again, I wasn't expecting much because, to be perfectly honest, I don't really rate the Mermaid gin and pink gin that they do. They're kind of a bit too sweet, they're a bit flabby, they don't really have much about them in my opinion, apart from a very nice looking bottle. But the vodka, my word, is different, classy, versatile. I love sipping it neat, chilled out the freezer, just that saltiness, it's almost refreshing, but cleverly that kind of makes you want to drink more of it. It's absolutely delicious, and the amount of people that I've given a small sample to, and you really don't need a lot to get the quality that comes through on this. More often than not, people will buy a bottle because it's absolutely brilliant. So for cocktail making, really is kind of like an extra dimension, makes your cocktails so interesting. And like I say, the espresso martini, which my wife absolutely loves, this as that vodka base, you are never going to look at any other vodka again for that particular cocktail. So Absolutely fantastic stuff, and a well-deserved winner. Now, let's look at the Agave Spirit of the Year, which encompassed tequila, mezcal, which tequila is a part of, but we've got raicilla, sotol, all of these sorts of things going on in that particular category. So I didn't want to limit it to just tequila, basically because I've only got 2 tequila brands on the shelf anyway. That wouldn't have given me much of a nomination. But the nominations were
Código Rosa, Estancia Raicilla, Hoyo de Tigre Mezcal, Storywood Anejo Tequila,
and the winner is Código Rosa Tequila. Now, I have had the Código range in pretty much from day one from opening. And as I've mentioned before previously, until relatively recently, I really struggled with tequila. Because tequila that I'd come across was things like Jose Cuervo, mainstream brands, in bars, didn't really like the flavor profile. And Código was one of the first that really opened my eyes to what tequila and mezcal offer as a category in terms of really, really well made sipping tequilas, sipping mezcal, because in Mexico they drink it neat. It's akin to whiskey and rum and things like that. Let me just pop this down here, clang. And the tequila that we get over here, quite a lot of it isn't 100% agave, it's this mixto tequila. And quite a lot of it is essentially be drunk as shots at the beginning of a night or at the end of a night when you're really, really pissed. Salt, lime, neck it. I can never remember what order you're supposed to do it in, but the salt and the lime are completely killing the flavour of the tequila that you're drinking, with good reason, because it doesn't actually taste that good. But premium tequila, handmade tequila, traditional tequila, I say handmade tequila, it's not handmade literally, but proper tequila that is being made to drunk neat, sipped, at room temperature, also works really well in margaritas, and that will change your margaritas as well. If you like a margarita, if you start using some really, really good ingredients, as with any cocktail, it makes an absolute world of difference. And what I love about Código, particularly with the Rosa, is that with the Rosa, with this maturation in Cabernet Sauvignon red wine casks, it brings forward this fruitiness that actually takes the tequila in a slightly different direction, adds fruitiness and makes it more approachable. And what I love about this in particular, and the others were fantastic nominations, but this was one of the easier ones for me to pick a winner from, because this has opened up people to what tequila and mezcal can offer because of that extra dimension of the Cabernet Sauvignon maturation time. It's not long in that cask either. It's about 6 months, 6 to 9 months, if that. But you get the earthiness that you would associate with tequila, but you get a lovely kind of soft red berry element in there on the nose, and then on the palate, that red berry feel comes through even more. It's soft, it's fruity, it's round, but you get earthiness, you get pepperiness that you would associate with tequila. It's very, very approachable, and it absolutely is a fantastic introduction to what tequila and mezcal can offer. It's incredibly drinkable, it's wonderful in a margarita. Dial down that lime element a little bit and you get more of that fruity element. But it's such a wonderful sipping tequila, and it really has kind of like, it was one of the first that opened to my eyes to what this category could offer, and it has helped me open other people's eyes as well. I think it is absolutely stunning. It's one of the best tequilas full stop that I've had, and I think it deserves much, much more recognition in the industry for what it potentially offers to encouraging people into tequila, because tequila is growing in popularity, and mezcal kind of on the coattails of tequila, even though tequila is part of mezcal. But there is still a reluctance for a lot of people to try it, and it's things like the Código Rosa that I do believe will encourage more people to at least give it a go. It's stunning stuff. It's so easy to drink, it's elegant, it's classy. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and that is why it is my Agave Spirit of the Year. Okay, so let's look at our Brandy stroke Grape Spirit of the Year, because I don't have many brandies, grape spirits. I've got like grappa and everything like that, and it was a sort of a limited category I've got if I just did brandy. You know, I don't have enough brandies as such to do 4 nominations, or I do, but they're kind of a bit of much and muchness. So let's open it out a little bit and make it grape spirit. But then I've also got a Calvados in there as well. The nominations were
Avalon Calvados, Tossalini Smoked Grappa, Seven Tails XO, Isabel Regina PX Finished Brandy.
And the winner of the Brandy / Grape Spirit of the Year 2021 is Isabel Regina Pedro Jimenez Finished Brandy. So this I had during Furlough. I was doing a number of tasting events. Oh, blimey, I can't actually open this sample bottle for people in the local community, just to kind of keep me hand in and keep doing different things, and also with a view of, well, if I open a shop, I might as well try some new things with a view of getting it in. And Isabel Regina was recommended to me by Greg and Tom at Tipples of Manchester, because I was actually getting some of the tasting stock from them because I didn't have my own shop at the time. So if you are Manchester way, I highly recommend going to check those guys out. Go and see what they've got. If I've not got it in this shop, go and get it from them. If I've got it in this shop, I'd rather get it from me. But they're lovely blokes, really, really knowledgeable, and well worth a visit if you're in Manchester city centre. And they recommended Isabel Regina because I wanted to do a brandy or a cognac or something in a tasting of various spirits. And this was the one they recommended to me, and I absolutely loved it, and it was an absolute must for when I opened the shop. What I love about this is that PX element. So it is Spanish brandies and cognac that are married in casks that have previously held Pedro Jimenez sherry, but there is a little bit of the sherry still left in the barrels when they're marrying it. So it's known as wet or moist, wet or moist casks. So there is still a little bit of liquid in there that kind of mixes in with the Spanish and French brandies. So this, I think, is absolutely amazing. I love brandy. Again, a bit like vodka, is kind of a maligned category. Everybody focuses on cognac, but there are some amazing brandies out there as well from other countries. And anything, if you've watched some of my videos, anything that's involving Pedro Jimenez, I am an absolute sucker for. So it's already ticking plenty of boxes for me. What I love about this is, on the nose you get that sweetness, but there's also a bit of earthiness in there as well. The danger is that the PX element becomes too overpowering and it actually becomes too sweet and almost a bit sickly, because brandies can be quite sweet as well. But there is a nice surprising earthiness in there and a little element of a dark chocolate. But you know, like 90% cocoa dark chocolate is less chocolate and more like an earthiness. When you get really, really high cocoa percentage chocolate, it's got that kind of like slightly dry earthiness on there. And then on the palate, that earthiness is tempered down. The sherry element starts to come through, but you still get this thread of like a soft spice. It's rich, it's full, it's unctuous. Now, to be honest, it might be a little bit too sweet for some people, and I absolutely get why, but I do like sweeter things, and I absolutely love this. I can fully imagine drinking this, say, after a really nice kind of like big roast dinner on a Sunday afternoon in front of a roaring log fire, which I don't have in my house, but it's that sort of, it's a desserty after dinner drink. It's unctuous, it's round, it's full, it's sweet, it's you know, it's kind of got that sweet sherry feel, but then also that bite, that earthiness from the brandies in there as well. I don't smoke them, but I can imagine this would go incredibly well with a cigar that's not too strong, not too bitter. This is so drinkable, like dangerously so. I haven't really played around with cocktails because it's kind of on the sweeter side, and I do wonder what this would be like in a cocktail that is that kind of like Manhattan-esque feel. So it needs something like a red vermouth to kind of like add a little bit more bitterness to it. But I think there is certainly flexibility in this to play around with cocktails. But it's so drinkable. I've got a couple of customers that they've tried it, they've bought a bottle, and then they come back pretty regularly because it's very, very easy to drink. Like I say, might be too sweet for some, but for me, it absolutely ticks the boxes. Now, Avalon Calvados, I think, is phenomenal, and that was a very, very close second. I love what the guys are doing in terms of their integrity, their sustainability, and I also love what the liquid is in terms of a very different, very fresh, very youthful style of Calvados. That was very close to this, to be perfectly honest. The other nominations are fantastic, otherwise they wouldn't have been nominated, but this just about gets the #1 spot, simply because I've kind of had a longer term relationship with this than I have with the Avalon Calvados. But the guys from Avalon might be watching. You were not far off, trust me on this. So let me finish this off. So good. And for winter months, November, Christmas, that sort of thing, this will absolutely fit the bill. If you're wanting just a little bit of a kind of warm up on a winter's evening, yes please, count me in. Okay, so let's look at our liqueur of the year, which was a bit of an all-encompassing, what haven't I covered in the shop outside of the categories that I've already got, the sweeter stuff, the things that don't really fit in as spirits, but are very, very good indeed, and I still would like to highlight. And the nominations were
Blackfire Tequila Coffee Liqueur, Le Verger French Terroir Liqueur, Cardrona Distillery Rose Rabbit Orange Liqueur, and Spirit of Yorkshire Cream Liqueur.
Now this was very close because I do like a liqueur, and it was hard enough to get the nominations together just to pick 4 and then to pick 1 out of that 4 because they're all quite disparate types of flavors. We've got a cream liqueur, we've got an orange liqueur, we've got a coffee liqueur, we've got a kind of Calvados fruity liqueur. You know, it's not like it's a comparison where you can go, well, like the vodkas, they're all vodkas, that one wins because of X. So this was a harder one to choose, but the winner is Le Verger French Terroir Liqueur. To be honest, I could have quite easily picked any of the 4 because I think the Blackfire is a coffee liqueur that goes in a completely different direction. However, it is not to everybody's taste. My wife loves an espresso martini, she loves coffee liqueur, but the Blackfire doesn't really do it for her because she's not a big fan of tequila and she thinks the chili gets in the way. The Rose Rabbit Orange Liqueur I think is phenomenal, and I love an orange liqueur, but it just might be a little bit too strong and a little bit too powerful for using in cocktails. I think it's amazing, but I do know some people that have tried it and gone, oh, that's really, really strong. And then the Spirit of Yorkshire Cream Liqueur I think is brilliant. I think it's a different type of cream liqueur. It's lighter, it's got more of a butterscotch Angel Delight feel than that kind of Bailey's route. And I really, really like it. And that was very close to being kind of my liqueur of the year. But the reason I picked Le Verger is I think it's amazing, and I think it has a lot of versatility, more so than the Spirit of Yorkshire Cream Liqueur, because cream liqueurs and cocktails, it's a bit difficult. It's kind of like you're making a creamy cocktail, that's about it. And actually, with cocktails that are more kind of that like Magnum cream liqueur, which is a similar flavor profile to Bailey's, but way, way better, offers more in terms of like chocolatey, slightly coffee cream liqueur feel, whereas with the toffee element, it doesn't work so well. So the Bailey Boo equivalent that I do, which is the Spirited Union coconut rum and Magnum, is amazing, but the coconut rum doesn't work with that toffee element of the Spirit of Yorkshire Cream Liqueur. So it's absolutely gorgeous on its own, but it's not quite as versatile as this, because this is a fantastically fruity liqueur. It's brilliantly balanced. You get the apple from the Calvados base, but then you also get that softer orchard fruits of peaches. There's a hint of pear and cherries as well, sweet cherries. So on the nose and on the palate, it's light but fruity. It's sweet but not cloyingly so. It's delicious on its own, but in a good glug of this in a glass of champagne, absolutely wonderful. And I've done a couple of cocktails with this, with amaretto, and done a bit like a sour. So, you know, lemon juice, you can put some egg white in if you want a bit of frothiness, but this with amaretto works absolutely brilliantly. That kind of like almond and apple and peach, it's kind of like gives you like a slightly, almost like apple crumbly type feel. There is a versatility to this which just lifts this in terms of the ranking above the Spirit of Yorkshire Cream Liqueur. And the other two were fantastic, but they do kind of have elements to them that not everybody is going to like. I think a lot more people will like this. I think this is an absolutely brilliant liqueur which has the range that you can then use it in cocktails and other drinks. Honestly, I very, very regularly, too regularly to be honest, if we're having some Prosecco or some champagne with dinner on a weekend, I'll probably just put a little dash of this. Particularly if it's a Prosecco or a champagne that's kind of like slightly on the cheaper scale. You've got it on deal, it's okay, it's drinkable, but it's not particularly fantastic. just a dash of this just elevates it, just adds that extra dimension, adds a little bit more fruitiness, a touch of sweetness, makes it really, really much more enjoyable to drink. I think it's an absolutely fantastic liqueur. And it really does deserve a lot more people being aware of it, because it offers so much in terms of that fruitiness and a liqueur that is not sickly sweet, which a lot of fruity liqueurs can do. Brilliantly balanced, brilliantly made. I think it is absolutely fantastic and a well-deserved winner. Okay, so now let's look at the whiskey categories, of which there were 3, just to try and make things a little bit simpler for myself to get some nominations together. We have World Whisky of the Year, we have American Whisky of the Year, and also the Scotch Whisky of the Year. So first, the nominations for the World Whisky of the Year were
Abasolo Mexican Corn Whisky, Spirit of Yorkshire Filey Bay Peated Finish, Macmira Björksav, and Starward Left Field.
And the winner is, this was a tough one to pick, to be honest, but the one that came out on top was Filey Bay Peated Finish. This might not be a surprise to some of you, considering I've done plenty of Filey Bay videos, and I also have a close connection with the distillery in terms of the master distiller Joe Clark. His first job within the whiskey industry was actually working for me as a part-timer when I was manager of the whiskey shop in York. And it's also, you know, I'm in Yorkshire. I'm not Yorkshire born and bred, but I've lived in Yorkshire longer than I lived anywhere else in the country, so I'm a kind of adopted Yorkshireman. It's a local distillery, that sort of thing. And it would have been very easy for me to just have it on the shelf because it's local. But there are also some other distilleries in the area that are starting to produce single malt and also have gins and various things like that. But in all honesty, they're not grabbing me as much as Filey Bay has. What I've been so impressed with what Joe's achieved is the depth of flavour that's there, the way that the various finishes that they've done have actually exemplified how it takes their house style and takes it in a different direction. The fact that they've been able to do a house style which is ex-bourbon cask, which is very fresh and light and fruity and creamy, but then also do the limited editions like the Yorkshire Day, etc., where they're sherry matured and they take that liquid in a completely different direction. Big, full-on sherry bombs. And I was really intrigued, particularly with the peated finish, to see what it did to that house style and whether it would actually work. They don't use peated barley at all. In terms of the process, everything is grain to glass. They grow their own barley. They are doing the milling mashing fermentation at the Woldtop Brewery, which Tom Mellor, who is the co-owner of the Spirit Yorkshire Distillery, also owns and founded, and then distilling at the distillery and bottling it on site. So everything is on site, but they're not using any peated barley. So the way to get a peated smokiness in the whiskey was to finish it off in Kilchoman casks. Now, this wasn't an agreement with Kilchoman. This wasn't a partnership. It was literally Joe was on the hunt for casks from an Islay distillery that would impart a smokiness into the whiskey. It could have been Laphroaig, it could have been Bowmore, it could have been even Lechec, something like that, but it just happened to be Kilchoman, and he's working on another batch that might be a completely different distillery. But what impressed me so much about this, and I do like the others, but this was the absolute standout for me, was just that subtlety, that balance of kind of creamy citrus notes that I associate with the house style. You know, that's what the flagship offers, and that's what is kind of the base for then the various finishes that they do. But that element where you can kind of tell it's Kilchoman, you get that smokiness, but it's soft, it's delicate, it's really subdued, not too full on. It's not like, right, we're going to do a peated finish, we want to get it as smoky as we possibly can. And that's why I think using a cask finish to introduce some smokiness without going too full on, because in the early days of Speyside whiskies kind of reintroducing heavily peated versions into them, the one I'll always remember is Benriach Curiositas. Speyside distillery, but they said we're going to do a heavily peated version, and it went full on. To be given credit, they went for it, but it was unbalanced, and there wasn't any character of the distillery. It was just, oh, we are doing smoke. What I love about this is it still kept its character of Filey Bay, as well as having that soft, sweet smokiness. So it's not too overpowering. On the nose, it's gentle, it's subtle. And on the palate, it's there, but it's not too full on. It weaves with that kind of, I associate with lemon cream. There's like citrus creaminess in there. It's beautifully balanced. And it's a fantastic introduction to peated whiskey for people that don't actually drink or don't like or don't think they like smoky whiskies, because it's not too full on to sort of put people off, but it gives you an introduction as to what peat can do to a whiskey without them using peat themselves. I love it. I think it's absolutely brilliant. They've done a fantastic job. If you did watch my IPA finish, you'll be aware that I do think they are starting to do slightly too many bottlings now, and I think they need to kind of readdress that and maybe streamline what their entire range is. But if I was working for them and I'd be saying to them, right, let's streamline the range, this is definitely one that I would be keeping as part of their continual availability, because it's a brilliant example of what Joe is managing to achieve in terms of their house style, but just doing something slightly different with it, taking it in a new direction and still making it absolutely fantastic. It's brilliant. It's really good. Now, the other nominations were excellent. This sort of was a bit of an easy one to pick a winner, but I love the difference that Abasolo brings. That corn whiskey is so unusual, and that's really why it became a nomination, because it stood out for me. I've not had anything else like it at all. Mira Björksav was brilliantly well made. It evoked what it was saying it was trying to evoke, which was this spring-like freshness. And the Starward Left Field, I love the fact that they are absolutely upfront in terms of this whiskey is to be drunk with food, with friends, with barbecues. If you want to do cocktails with it, it's absolutely fine. It's young, it's funky, it's cool, but it's bloody tasty as well. It's not a marketing gimmick where it's like, oh, we're to be paired with food, but the whiskey's not actually very good. This is really good stuff. But Filey Bay peated finish is my World Whisky of the Year 2021. Now, let's look at the American Whisky of the Year, and the nominations were
Angel's Envy Port Finish Bourbon, Belmont Farm Virginia Whisky, Catocking Creek Distillers Edition, and Sheepdog Peanut Butter Whisky Liqueur.
And the winner is, and there might be some people going, it better not be Sheepdog, it better not be Sheepdog. Well, in what is a bit of a surprise to everybody, the winner actually is Belmont Farm Virginia Whisky. So there's probably some of you going, oh God, I thought you were going to say Sheepdog. And yeah, that's fine, you know, turn your nose up at it. But I had immense fun with Sheepdog, as I've said on a number of occasions, and that is why it was one of my nominations, because it was my nomination, not yours, not anyone else's, and I absolutely loved the stuff and had loads of fun with it. But my American Whisky of the Year, although some of you might thought it was going to be Angel's Envy, because I absolutely love that stuff, but the winner being Belmont Farm is less about this particular Virginia whiskey and more about just Belmont Farm as a whole. Chuck and his daughter Crystal joined us on a tasting earlier this year. They dialed in from Virginia on Zoom and spoke to everybody and gave us some history. Within minutes, we knew we were going to have one of the best tastings we've ever had. I had a couple of people who, not necessarily into American whiskies, that had joined in, and they'd messaged me within 5 minutes of him starting off talking to us and saying, I love this guy, I'm going to be getting some bottles, and I've not even tried the whiskies yet. A bit like Filey Bay, it's grain to glass. They are growing all the stocks themselves. They're growing the corn, they're growing the wine. If you ever get a chance to either look at some YouTube videos of the distillery or see some pictures of it, it is a converted farm that's kind of like grown organically, in terms of not everything is organic, but the operation has kind of grown by adding bits and pieces into different barns and kind of building that bit there and adding that bit there and stick that in a corner and all this lot. It's proper old school, it's proper craft, it's got so much character in it. And Chuck, the master distiller, is one of the most memorable people I have ever come across in my life. He was absolutely amazing. Crystal was lovely. Crystal seems to be the one that kind of has to keep him grounded and rein him in and stop him from getting too excited. They've got a massive range. I really do want to go across to Virginia and visit them in person. So you're not going to be able to see it because it's just on this bottom shelf, but I've got essentially in the shop everything that's available now. So we have the Virginia whiskey, we've got the Virginia bourbon, and the only difference between the bourbon and the Virginia whiskey is with the Virginia whiskey there is basically sacks of applewood staves that are soaked in the new make spirit before it goes into cask. With the bourbon, because you can't do any additional flavourings or anything like that, they don't do the applewood soaking because they wouldn't be able to call it bourbon. That is the only difference between the two. We've got the bonded Virginia whiskey, so it's bottled at 50% ABV. We've got the American single malt, which is one of the best single malt whiskies just generally, let alone American, I've ever come across. It's absolutely stunning. And then we've got their butterscotch and their apple whiskies, which again, some people might turn their nose up. But the butterscotch was amazing, and it is literally hard butterscotch candies, a bit like Werther's Originals, dumped into a vat of the whiskey, left to dissolve. That's what gives you the flavour. The apple is essentially super concentrated apple juice, and it works brilliantly. They're absolutely fantastic. So while I've picked one as the winner, the Virginia whiskey, because this was the one that I had first, and this is their kind of core expression. This is the one that kind of shows off what Belmont Farm can offer. The reason that they're my American Whiskey of the Year is they're actually my American whiskey producer. I just think they are amazing, and they are genuine, and they are authentic, and they are fun, and they are full of character, and they are doing things properly, traditionally. Chuck has a history with his family being involved in illicit distilling. The stories he comes out with are absolutely amazing, and they are just wonderful, and I can't help but love Belmont Farm as a brand because of the people behind it. And sometimes that gets lost with all the branding, with all the marketing, and all the nonsense that goes around in terms of all the traditions and everything like that. Every now and again you'll get the ones where they talk about the people involved, and sometimes the people come across a bit false, and you're reading these stories and you're thinking, you know, that's not strictly true, and you're actually making yourself sound a bit more impressive than you are. But on occasions you get the people where they've had a life. They have absolutely gone through hell and high water, and all the passion and all the integrity and all the enthusiasm and all the love for the spirit and the industry and the market and the customers and the consumers and people that are drinking it goes into that bottle, and that is absolutely the case with Belmont Farm. So, on the nose, fresh, warm, there's vanilla in there, there's a touch of spice. There is actually that slight hint of apple as well, that slight fruitiness, and that's why I love this in an old fashioned, because it adds a little bit of fruitiness. It's a brilliant base for an old fashioned as well. And on the palate, you get that lovely vanilla flavour, you get a touch of raisin, there's a little bit of oak in there, there's a little bit of spice, a little touch of chili spice, but not too full on, because I tend to err away from bourbons and American whiskies that are too hot, that have too much of that spiciness, and this has the balance absolutely brilliantly. Again, all those boxes being ticked for a really, really good old-fashioned. That slight fruitiness from the applewood really does come through. I do prefer the Virginia whiskey to the bourbon. I think it's magnificently priced as well. I think it's fantastic value for money. The whole ranges, to be honest, all of them, they could easily get away with probably putting another 5-10 quid on a bottle. But they don't, because they make a lot of it and they just want it sold and they want people to enjoy it. It's an amazing, amazing whiskey, and it's an amazing distillery. I really wish I can go there in person at some point in my life. So not only is the Belmont Farm Virginia whiskey my American Whiskey of the Year, but actually the rest of the ranges. The single malt in particular is an absolute standout. But I love all of them. I love the people that work there, that run it, and I also love what they are producing. So that is a well-deserved American Whiskey of the Year. And finally, we get to the Scotch Whiskey of the Year 2021. Now, somebody did actually comment on one of the videos going, oh, you're not splitting it into single malts. No, because I don't have that many kind of blends and grains and everything like that in the shop anyway. Plus, I wanted to kind of envelop Scotch as a whole. Now, as it is, they all ended up being single malts. But if there was a grain or anything, I mean, there was actually, Spearhead was quite close to being in it, because that's really, really interesting. Nonetheless, it turns out that they're all single malt Scotch anyway. But the nominations were Ardnamurchan Merkin Batch 5, Gordon and MacPhail Discovery Milton Duff 10-year-old, Lechec Sinclair Series Rioja Finish, and Isle of Rasay Batch 2. Now, this was a very close one to call. We've had some absolutely amazing new distilleries that have launched in the last, well, the year that I've been open and just before I opened, but pretty much in the last 18 months at the time of recording. There have been a few new distilleries that have launched their inaugural releases, and they've all been absolutely fantastic. As well as some traditional distilleries that are doing some interesting bottlings. I absolutely love that Lechec red wine finish, and the Milton Duff 10-year-old really does give a fantastic example of what a sherry matured whiskey can do. However, the winner, the Scotch Whiskey of the Year 2021 is Ardnamurchan Batch 5. And here we are. I still have a fair bit of the sample bottle that I was given, or did I actually crack one open? I can't remember. I think I was given it because I ended up getting some more stock off them very, very kindly. I have just managed to secure some more Batch 5, so I do have a little bit of stock left, but not much. It is selling really, really well, mainly because I am pitching it to people who are looking for a really, really good Scotch whiskey with loads of character and loads of flavour. That wasn't a bottle that dropped on the floor, that was just a sheet of paper. I am still amazed at how good this is. Isle of Rasay was also phenomenal, but this pips Rasay to the Scotch Whisky of the Year because of the texture as well. And weirdly, I was actually online yesterday looking at doing some tasting notes for Springbank, and I saw somebody had written a review of this where they'd actually made a comparison to Springbank 15-year-old, and that is a pretty good comparison because this is their batch 5 that's about 4.5 years old, and you're comparing it to arguably one of the most highly regarded whiskey distilleries and also whiskey releases out there. The complexity of this is just stunning. There is so much going on. There is a slight brine feel. There's hints of black pepper. There's soft smoke. There's bonfire on a beach. There's a slight oiliness. There's warm fruit. There's orchard fruits. There's malted biscuits. There's just so much going on. And it's one of these amazing noses that as you go back, there's something new. Now there's a hint of milk chocolate, almost like Cadbury's fruit and nut. And every time you go back, there's something new, there's something interesting, there's always something to give. And absolutely the best spirits, not just whiskies, but the best spirits, keep giving you new things. And this absolutely does. This is one of those whiskies that I could just sit for half an hour and just nose it. I don't even need to drink this stuff. You know, it means that a glass lasts for ages because I could just sit there and do this. I could be reading a book, watching telly, doing something like that, and just nose that and still have a really, really good time. And then on the palate, it just, everything that's on the nose comes through on the palate. You know, there are some spirits out there that you nose it and you're like, oh, this is going to be really good. And then you put it in your mouth, you swallow. Sounds a bit rude. And there's just nothing there. It's kind of flat or flabby. But this, everything that's on the nose, and it keeps evolving, it keeps changing. Again, chocolate, nuts, touch of smoke, sweet smoke, actually then becomes quite peppery, a little bit of chili flakes, then you get that oiliness, then you get that sea saltiness. The evolution of flavours in here is just absolutely incredible. And the Rasay had that as well. And the batch 2 I think's got a slight touch of smoke. I will be doing a comparison between the batch 1 and the batch 2 on the Rasay because I do think there is a difference. And there was a difference here between the batch 5 and the batch 3 because confusingly the batch 4 was an exclusive to the US. So the batch 3 was the first one that I got in the shop. And having tried the 3 and the 5 side by side, the 5 seems to have just somehow even more complexity to it. And the reason that this gets the winner rather than the Rasay is there is also just this oily, rich, buttery mouthfeel as well. So the Rasay, loads of complexity, complications? Maybe. Loads of complexity, smoke wafting through, fruitiness, all of this lot. This just has that little something extra, and it's very much a texture. It's that slight kind of buttery, slightly oiliness, thicker mouthfeel that envelops the mouth and actually allows that massive complex flavours that are within it to kind of evolve even more. It is phenomenal for something so young. Another mouthful, and I've got citrus now. I've got kind of like orange oils and a touch of lemon. It keeps giving so many different things. I am amazed that this, and Rasay as well, for something so young, has so much to offer, so much complexity, and is easily comparable to 10, 12, 15-year-old single malts that are out there. I cannot wait to see, I'm going to have to, so, you know, I have to wait to see what this is going to be like at, say, 10-year-old, 15-year-old. I do wonder how much better it can be. Can it get any better than this? Will it actually get to, 12-year-old and actually kind of plateau and then just start to, not tail off, but that's as good as it's going to get? You know, is it going to remain this consistently brilliant all the way through? Can it be any better? Because this is absolutely phenomenal. And you know, I am selling quite a few bottles of it with people coming in wanting to get a Scotch single malt for a present or for themselves, and they want something slightly different, and I will give them the Ardnamurchan and I won't tell them how old it is, and they'll be like, oh, that's absolutely fantastic. You know, how old do you think it is? Oh, 10, 15, something like that. No, it's 4.5. It's just amazing what they've done with it. So that is a well deserved. It was close, but Ardnamurchan is very well deserved as my Scotch Whisky of the Year 2021. So that is that. We are done. That is the winners announced. As a brief overview, I will just reel off the winners one more time, but I need to go and get my bit of paper from down there on the floor. So the Rum of the Year was HMS Victory Navy Strength. The Flavoured and Spiced Rum of the Year was Spirited Union Organic Coconut. The Gin of the Year was Rare Bird Dry London. The Flavoured Gin of the Year was Three Wrens Apple Crumble Edition. The Vodka of the Year was Mermaid Sea Salt Vodka. The Agave Spirit of the Year was Codigo Rosa. The Brandy and Grape Spirit of the Year was Isabelle Regina. The Liqueur of the Year was Le Verger French Terroir Liqueur. The World Whisky of the Year was Filey Bay Peated Finish. The American Whisky of the Year was Belmont Farm Virginia Whisky, and the Scotch Whisky of the Year was Ardnamurchan Batch 5. You may agree with those winners, you may not. Hopefully it will encourage you to maybe go and either pop in the shop and try any of the nominations, because I've got samples of all of them, and hopefully pick up a few bottles and help me buy my kids some Christmas presents. It is our first anniversary. At the time of recording, it's our first anniversary in 2 days' time, and I want to thank everybody watching for supporting us, even if it's just by watching this video, because that helps all the algorithms and things and gets it to other people. It's been a really difficult year. I opened the store 3 days after the UK went into a second national lockdown. So we've gone through 2 lockdowns, really difficult trading times. I've had to keep the doors open. I didn't even have the option of taking a grant and closing because I counted as an off license, so I had to stay open. But I do sincerely want to thank absolutely everybody that's bought a bottle, that's been involved in the tasting events, that's commented on videos, that has just given me feedback and just given me the belief and the confidence, because I am somebody that doesn't have a lot of self-belief. I do suffer from imposter syndrome quite badly, but all those comments and all those really nice things that people have said and the bottles that people have bought, all of that sort of stuff has really kind of like helped me plow my way through this and make it to a year. When I opened the doors, I said to myself, if I can make it to a year with the doors still open and some money in the bank, then I'll consider that a success. The doors are still open. I mean, I've got a day and for it all to go wrong, but the doors are still open and there is some money in the bank. Not a lot, but there is still some money in the bank, so I can consider that a success. And that is down to you watching it, you buying bottles from me, you commenting, helping me out, giving me advice, giving me feedback, genuinely supporting me. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell people that you don't know on the street, tell them that I exist, tell them to, you know, come and have a look. I do this for a love of the industry as a whole. I am not here to sell stuff that is fake or overpriced or full of marketing nonsense. I just want to give you and tell you about the really good quality, the really interesting, the really kind of like unusual stuff that makes life worth living, and sharing it with your friends and sharing it with people that you know that have similar interests and trying new things, because the thought of just drinking the same thing day in, day out fills me with absolute horror. So, thank you. Here's to another year and beyond with any luck. Keep watching. I will keep going with the videos. With any luck I might be able to push them out at a quicker rate as well, but thank you so much for being part of this journey, and hopefully you'll continue to join me for the next 365 days and onwards. So take care of yourself and each other, as Jerry Springer used to say, and I shall hopefully see you at the next video. Cheers.